Hi everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about fandoms and online communication. Okay, firstly, so we'll start with what fandoms are. If you're not familiar, fandom is a term used to describe fan culture. Um, it's a group of people who like a specific thing, like a book, a show, a movie, a sports team, just any topic or something that a group of people all share in common. And in fandoms, people usually engage with one another in this day and age via social media. Fandoms have not always been like this, as um, I'm sure we're all aware of Beatlemania, and that was before the internet. So there were still fandoms and groups of fans prior to, but specifically now in this day and age with the internet, we have moved to more um, online versions of fandoms, and um, that's also a reason that fandoms have become such a big place in our society because we can share them so easily and they're so easily accessible. Two big platforms for online fandoms are Twitter and not as recently, but in the beginning of the online fandoms, Tumblr was a big place for people to meet and talk about specific topics that they enjoyed. So there are many elements to fandom and fan culture. There's certain different subsets of them and certain aspects that people engage with. Some people engage simply just with the fans, other fans, and just talk about that. Some people engage with something called fan fiction, which are fiction stories written about the subject base of a fandom by a member or members for the enjoyment of the other fans. These are um, just fictional adaptations of what people like. For example, in a show, maybe two characters never get romantically involved, but someone would write a fan fiction where that would happen. Um, so fan fiction is a very important part of fandom culture, and the popularization of fan fiction with sites like Wattpad and archives of their own have led to that even being led to that being even bigger now. So also there's another or also fandoms have names and they identify themselves with. So just so that they can create having a name helps create a community within itself. So for example, Barb's for Nicki Minaj fans, or Human Beings is the fandom name for the show Community. Um, Even we can think back to before there were even like solely online fan communities, back to even sports, back to just like when it was just a group of people before online. Things like sports, like the Green Bay Packers are called cheeseheads. That's also like kind of, even though maybe they wouldn't consider themselves a fandom, an idea of just how common fandoms can be and how the naming of the fandom can also bring some sort of relationship and bond between the people. So this idea of fandom dates back to the 1960s when Star Trek began to have a cult following. Um, but that is the modern version of fandoms today. There were definitely groups of people who enjoyed things and would get together and talk about them, but that was one that began in a specific mediated place, and now there's all kinds of fandoms with all kinds of different people in them for all different kinds of things. But there's other elements that fans like to dress up like certain characters or certain artists or people. and they have their own lingo sometimes, like having their own sayings or specific like jokes that relate to the show or the movie or whatever that they are coming together to enjoy. There's also an expectation when you join a fandom that you have a solid knowledge base um, of the subject itself. So, for example, if you wanted to be a part of the Barbs, like I mentioned, the Nicki Minaj fans, it would be assumed once you enter that community that you have a pretty deep knowledge of this person. You're not just a fan, you're a big fan. You wouldn't just know the songs that are popular on the radio. You would often go beyond that. Um, Next, we're going to talk about the impacts of fandoms on society and everyday life. So, fandoms over time have shown to impact the way that communication happens greatly. Now, we have this ability to find people in a controlled area that enjoy a specific interest. The creation of the internet allowed for this type of communication to spread, and fans have created like I said, great social impacts on the way that the world works or the specific communities themselves. Recently at the Grammys, if you guys watched it, Taylor Swift was asked, we were talking about the Swifties, her fan base, if, because they have a great impact on society because there are so many of them. And I think the host of the Grammys asked Taylor Swift if the Swifties could lower the price of eggs. And then news articles came out saying the price of eggs were lowered. Is it probably because of the Swifties? No, but it's a good example of how like these things can lead to, I mean, maybe it was, but these things can kind of lead to greater impacts, and we'll remember that now. Like this, we'll remember the Swifties for lowering the price of eggs. But the true stars of the fan community have been and always probably will be in America. The Directioners, the One Direction fandom, and they honestly have created such a big impact on the way that fans and social media works today. And I want to talk about the Directions because of their specific impact on the way that we even just view fandoms today. The One Direction fandom completely changed an entire course of online misogyny. For decades, women have been discriminated against for liking the things they enjoy, like I said, Beatlemania and things like that. Like it was a very a feminized thing to like bands or boy bands or musicians like that. But however, it was even more prevalent during the reign of One Direction just because of online and there were so many fans. There was a massive wave of men using this mutual like for One Direction to group women together in certain boxes and deem them all the same. I'm sure most of us, I can remember, I wasn't like a huge One Direction fan, but I remember people like being made fun of my friends for liking them. Like, oh, you're just a girl, of course, you just like One Direction because they're cute and things like that. But this push and this recognition of that within the just recognizing that these fans are being talked to in that way kind of like started this whole like debate and like about the stigmatization of fandoms as like specifically women like following these bands for men and things like people who or like people who were not who did not identify as women who also liked One Direction were discriminated against, saying their likes were too girly and things like that. And that was also a stigma that people felt needed to be addressed. And lastly, I'm going to be talking about the abuses of power and kind of tying it together to like how online communication and fandoms kind of relate to some of the topics we've been talking about in class. As we discussed in class, technologies can lead to abuses and misuses of certain dynamics. While this idea of fans and fandoms have been around since before the internet, the involvement of the internet has changed fandom culture forever. While the accessibility of people who are able to come together to share common interests does great things for building relationships, sometimes people can also take it too far. And the internet has allowed people to have a platform some of those who take it too far to permanently put that online. Fandoms come with all different elements, as we discussed, and those elements are made up of groups of people, and whether the group is the fans or the creator of the common interest, whether it be the author of the book everyone likes or the musician who creates the music. Now, most fandoms involve a mutual like for some person or group of people, and whether these people are characters or real life people are still involved in fandoms. Especially as we discussed the anonymity. Oh my gosh, of online culture and being online. It's very prevalent in the fandom community. People can say whatever they like to the members of the fandom, and they can say whatever they like about the subject in general. There can also be abuses of power that directly affect the fandom subject. Fans and fandoms can sometimes take too far, and the enjoyment of what they are a fan of becomes, a little bit too much. For example, I'm sure lots of people are familiar with the movie After, which was based off of a fan fiction written about Harry Styles, written by one of the fans of Harry Styles. And um, I know that it began like Harry Styles felt really uncomfortable with this publicization of his something in relation kind of to him, but not really about him, being profited off of. And so I'm pretty sure he put a restraining order against the author. But it just goes to show that these communities can have abuses of power where the dynamics are not the same, because now we have the internet and because people can put um, that online. So essentially, fandoms are a platform and a space where people can have a community, but also can abuse that community and use it to seek out their own motives. Thank you.